Gaslighting and narcissistic personality traits have significant psychological impacts on interpersonal relationships. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where one person attempts to make another doubt their perceptions, memories, or understanding of reality. It's characterized by persistent lying, denial, contradiction, and the instrumental use of confusion to destabilize and delegitimize the target. A narcissistic personality, on the other hand, is defined by traits such as a grandiose sense of self-importance, a deep need for excessive admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. Together, these behaviors can be severely damaging in relationships. Understanding gaslighting and narcissistic personality is crucial because these behaviors can severely strain relationships, eroding trust and self-esteem. Many individuals stay in toxic relationships much longer than they should because gaslighting undermines their confidence, leading them to question their own perceptions and judgments. In addition, narcissistic traits can create a transactional dynamic where one's needs are perpetually prioritized, resulting in an imbalance of power. Consider the example of a romantic relationship in which one partner constantly denies shared experiences, insisting that the other is simply too sensitive or imagining things. Over time, the victim may stop trusting their observations, feeling trapped in a narrative they can't control. In another example, a workplace scenario might involve a narcissistic boss who takes credit for employees' successes while deflecting blame onto them for any failures, perpetuating a cycle of manipulation and powerlessness. It is widely supported by psychologists that recognizing these harmful behaviors is the first step toward addressing them. Educational campaigns and therapeutic interventions often emphasize the importance of trusting one's instincts and seeking professional guidance for emotional support and to develop coping strategies. However, potential challenges include the difficulty victims face in identifying gaslighting because it can be insidious and subtle. Furthermore, individuals with narcissistic traits may struggle with self-awareness, making change difficult without external motivation or intervention. There are alternative viewpoints that suggest some individuals accused of these behaviors might not fully understand the impact of their actions, possibly due to dysfunctional upbringing or personal trauma. This, however, does not excuse the behavior, but highlights the complexity of addressing such dynamics. In conclusion, understanding gaslighting and narcissistic personality is integral to unpacking their substantial effects on relationships. These behaviors affect communication, trust, and emotional well-being, necessitating awareness and strategic therapeutic approaches to foster healthier interactions. Recognizing gaslighting behaviors in relationships is crucial in understanding the dynamic between narcissists and their partners. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where the perpetrator seeks to make the victim doubt their own perceptions, memory, or sanity. This insidious behavior is characterized by the abuser lying outright, denying the victim's reality, or dismissing their feelings as irrational. This tactic is often employed by individuals with narcissistic personality traits, as it allows them to maintain control and power over their partner. The significance of recognizing gaslighting in relationships cannot be overstated. It is a pivotal step in protecting oneself from emotional and psychological harm inflicted by a narcissistic partner. Being aware of these behaviors can empower victims to set boundaries, seek help, and possibly leave toxic situations, thus mitigating the long-term psychological effects. To illustrate, consider a partner who consistently trivializes their significant other's accomplishments and blames them for problems in the relationship. When their partner recalls events or conversations accurately, the gaslighter might insist those events never happened, creating confusion and self-doubt. Another example is when a gaslighter contradicts or invalidates a partner's feelings, making emphatic statements about their irrationality. Over time, the victim may begin to question their judgment and may become overly dependent on the gaslighter for a distorted sense of reality. There is a broad consensus among mental health professionals that identifying and addressing gaslighting is essential for healthy relationship dynamics. Experts like psychologists and therapists argue that education about such tactics can prevent victimization and aid recovery. However, some challenges arise in recognizing gaslighting, as it can be subtle and may not be immediately apparent, often leaving victims unaware they are being manipulated. There are controversies in understanding gaslighting from cultural and social perspectives. In some cultures, the acceptance of traditional gender roles may obscure gaslighting behaviors, framing them as standard within relationships. Additionally, some might argue about the potential misuse of the term, where ordinary disagreements or misunderstandings might be mislabeled as gaslighting. Recognizing these manipulative behaviors is integrally connected to the wider discussion of narcissistic personality effects on relationships. It highlights the destructive patterns that one might face when entrenched in a relationship with a narcissist, underlining the importance of awareness and self-advocacy. Understanding gaslighting provides crucial insight into breaking the cycle of narcissistic abuse, ultimately fostering healthier interpersonal interactions and personal well-being. Narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, is characterized by a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. Individuals with NPD often exhibit an inflated sense of their own importance and an unrelenting desire for excessive attention and approval. They may have fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, or beauty, and believe they are superior to others. This disorder is crucial to understanding the dynamics of relationships that involve gaslighting, as narcissists frequently employ manipulation tactics to control and demean others, thereby perpetuating toxic relationship patterns. The significance of understanding the characteristics of NPD in the context of relationships lies in its potential for causing emotional and psychological harm to partners. Narcissists can create an environment where their partner feels invalidated and constantly second-guesses their perception of reality, a common feature of gaslighting. For example, a narcissistic partner might consistently deny hurtful incidents, making their partner question their own memory and sanity. Another real-world illustration is when a narcissistic individual seeks admiration at the expense of their partner's feelings, often by exaggerating achievements or monopolizing conversations, further isolating the partner and eroding their self-esteem. Various opinions emphasize the detrimental impact of such dynamics. Experts suggest that relationships with narcissists can lead to long-term emotional scars and advocate for awareness and boundaries as protective measures. However, challenges exist in diagnosing NPD accurately, as narcissists are skilled at presenting a charming, charismatic exterior that masks underlying insecurities and manipulative behaviors. Some might argue that societal tendencies to idolize confidence and ambition can blur the lines between healthy self-esteem and pathological narcissism. Controversially, some alternative viewpoints suggest that narcissistic traits might be partly adaptive or misunderstood, viewing certain behaviors as survival mechanisms rather than disorders. This perspective introduces the idea that narcissism can exist on a spectrum, where certain traits may not always equate to a disorder, but rather signal complex interpersonal challenges. Understanding the characteristics of NPD is pivotal to recognizing and addressing the broader theme of gaslighting in relationships. It emphasizes the need for empathy and psychological insight when dealing with manipulative dynamics, underscoring the importance of mental health awareness in fostering healthy relationships. By connecting these dots, we gain a clearer vision of how narcissistic behavior underpins gaslighting techniques, allowing individuals to protect their well-being and foster healthier relationship dynamics. Gaslighting is a manipulative tactic often used by individuals with narcissistic tendencies to exert control over their partners, making them question their own perception, memory, or sanity. The psychological impact of gaslighting on partners is profound and insidious, often resulting in diminished self-esteem, anxiety, depression, and a pervasive sense of self-doubt. This concept is crucial in understanding the dynamics of relationships affected by narcissistic behavior, as it highlights the emotional and psychological toll that such manipulation can inflict. One real-world example of the psychological impact of gaslighting is a partner constantly being told that they are too sensitive in response to legitimate concerns, which can lead them to doubt their feelings and perceptions. Another example could be a situation where a partner alters or denies facts of past events to make the other feel uncertain about their recollection, ultimately causing confusion and dependency on the gaslighter for clarification of the truth. These scenarios underscore the disorienting effects gaslighting can have, eroding trust in one's judgment and reinforcing the perpetrator's control. Psychologists and therapists often emphasize the importance of recognizing gaslighting as a form of emotional abuse. They suggest that increasing awareness of such tactics can empower victims to seek support and establish healthier boundaries. However, this concept is not without its complexities. It can be challenging to identify gaslighting, as it often occurs gradually and subtly. There are also controversies surrounding the identification of gaslighting, as some critics argue that the term is sometimes overused or misapplied to situations that do not involve intentional manipulation. This psychological impact is interconnected with other aspects of the relationship involving a narcissistic partner, such as dependency, power imbalance, and isolation. As gaslighting deepens, it can lead to a partner's increased reliance on the narcissist for validation and reality checks, fostering a cycle of control and submission. Over time, the victim's ability to trust their own instincts may wane, making it even more difficult to break free from the toxic relationship. Understanding the psychological impact of gaslighting is essential for comprehending the broader effects of narcissistic personality traits on relationships. It sheds light on the subtle yet devastating ways these dynamics can unravel an individual's sense of self and impede their emotional well-being, ultimately guiding those affected towards a path of recovery and empowerment.